Hello and welcome to part two of The Last of Us Part 2 spoiler cast with us two, me, Lucy, and you, Ben.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm
Good?
good. Yeah, I'm all right.
Good. Ready to talk about Abby? Because
Yeah.
that's where we left off last time. Yeah, last time we basically went through her and her crew and, who we liked, who we didn't like, and
Mm.
found out you're a monster because you don't like Owen. But yeah, I think we kick right into where Abby's journey of Seattle Day 1, 2, and 3. Basically, wake up as Abby. We know that Joel killed her dad, who was a surgeon. And yeah, wake up as Abby, and they're in the stadium, which I thought that was like really interesting because it's like, oh yeah, it would make sense that this would probably be a stronghold.
Yeah.
Got all the like executive boxes where people sleep and stuff like that, and yeah. I think I had a visceral reaction to like, oh man, I don't want to play as Abby. I don't care about it. I hate her at this point. I don't think you had as strong a reaction, but
Yes.
were you surprised? Did you know about it from the like spoilers and stuff?
I no, I didn't know from the spoilers, and I think we sort of touched on this last week. I didn't really even have an inkling from the start area where you play as her for that small section. I didn't
Yeah.
know that we'd be jumping to her for such a large amount of the game, or if even at all, really. And I think, as you say, I didn't have quite as a big reaction to playing as her. Mine was much more intrigue, like, okay, let's see where they're going to take this, see how the story will kind of develop. Kind of not retreading that ground that Ellie's just been, but the way that they then told that story kind of they have told it linearly, but in sort of two sections. So it was interesting to see kind of how the two stories interacted with each other, how those different narratives sort of intertwined, where people were, what they were actually doing in certain locations and things like that. And I was really interested in the stadium. Very cool to see another sort of settlement, because obviously we'd seen that they hold various parts of the city. They have sort of outposts and different areas that they work in, like the hospital and those sorts of things, but then consolidating everything to come back to the stadium, which stadiums are massive, especially over in the States. So you would imagine that could hold and house a lot of people, and it isn't just that. Occasionally where in the States and other places where they've had to use stadiums almost as refuge from sort of natural disasters and things. Normally that's quite sort of makeshift, and actually this is very well sort of set out and established, and they have their processes in place. They have their areas for certain things. It was really interesting to see how an existing building on such a scale could be retrofitted to basically be a small town, essentially.
Yeah. What I was confused by though was the grass, because usually it's like fake grass in like stadiums, like AstroTurf and stuff. Like, I was just like, did you get like grass seeds and grow them out of fake grass? I don't know. That's looking way too specifically.
Too lush for a real stadium. Yeah.
I'm guessing, is it mandatory that you have to play the dog? Is it Bear that you play with first? Or
It
Ellie?
is there that you play with the dog. I don't think you have to.
Oh, okay.
So
I threw the ball over the fence because I was like, is a dog just gonna run over there? And it's like, no. Abby comments on it, and she's like, oh, sorry, Bear, or whatever.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I was like, oh, you lot accounted for this, for me throwing the ball over the fence. So there's little bits of details, really,
Nice.
really, 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 really stunning. But yeah. So we go on the scouting trip with the dog, Mel, and Manny, which is, in retrospect, probably the worst like group of people I'd probably want to go with. But because Mel and Manny both suck. But yeah. This was a long gameplay sequence.
Yes.
But yeah, you got introduced to like more of Mel and Manny's characters, and yeah, there's a lot of parts in Abby's story which just feel a bit long gameplay wise, but this was certainly one of them. But yeah, well, you got any major thoughts on this part? I don't think there's much to comment on.
Just to say, hey, old shrug in the chat, joining us.
Oh, hello.
I think it serves, and I think it reflects quite a lot of what I felt with Abby's playthrough. That sections were a little bit too long. That parts of them were there to serve the story, and you can kind of see why they've done it. You know, they want to put in that backstory with Mel, and flesh out that relationship with Owen and what's happening there. They also want to give Manny a little bit more space, a little bit more screen time, to show kind of maybe what sort of character is he, what he means to Abby, and maybe sort of the whole team, but also as another character that you saw early in the game. It's I can't remember what Manny does in that first section with Joel. I think it's Owen that stops anyone taking things further, isn't it? With Ellie, there's the other lad who Ellie kills, who she slashes his face, and everyone else kind of just stood around really in that section. So it's the sort of the first chance you get to explore Manny as a character really, and through the stadium sort of section. But it did feel long. It's like the car chase scene makes sense to have a big set piece because it's a Naughty Dog game. They're very good at doing those sorts of things. Before that started off, I took a lot of photo mode photos of the dog sticking its head out of the window, and to have a little bit of a gameplay with Infected as well made sense. Good to see sort of how Abby plays as a character, and I get maybe why they extended that first part as they did, because they want to give you as much as they can of Abby to be able to get you to understand the differences and to start to work out sort of the way she plays, I suppose.
Yeah, the whole going through Costco and or Home Depot or whatever, and it just it was a long gameplay session, and the shootout at the end was okay, because you think, oh, it's getting hairy, and it's like, no, the rest of your faction come save you, and that was cool. But and it was cool to see, like, oh yeah, this pregnant woman is just going, she's just going with you, and it's like every time bullets started flying, it's just like, oh, should you really be out in the field? But yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah,
That was
absolutely.
Cool. Yeah, and then I think you just get back to camp, and then Isaac, you meet Isaac, who's like who's been foreshadowed as, you know, this really imposing figure, and you know, when you're walking through like the torture cells and stuff like that, it's like, oh, who's this Isaac? And when it was like, oh, is that Jeffrey Wright? I was like, oh, that's cool. They got him to voice this game because he's a really good actor, and I was like, ooh. I thought Isaac would be the big bad that you fight at the end.
Okay.
Do you think well, or
I wasn't sure because of the hey, Addle's in, muted for spoiling us. Old shrug. Also, Queen of Indies playing AAA, love it. Special place for The Last of Us, I think, isn't there, Lucy?
yes, there's an exception.
So I think from the sort of the foreshadowing, and them not sort of revealing Isaac during Ellie's playthrough in any sort of sense, I didn't think we'd see much of him. So I'm kind of the opposite to you in that even though he's part of Abby's story, I kind of just thought he would be a vehicle for pushing her to going different places, and why maybe she was here in day 2 or here in day 3. So I was, not to jump ahead too much, but I was actually quite surprised when he appeared again later on, and kind of what happens there. We'll get to that, I suppose. But yeah, I think as an imposing figure, as people kind of who they look up to, and everyone's following his plan. it's the kind of the way that everyone reacted and acted around him as well.
Yeah.
It's kind of, he is basically saying, do this and shut the fuck up. This is what you're going to be up to. And they're just sort of like, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. 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 In fact, I want to talk about it now because Isaac, yeah, he gets dispatched pretty quickly. He's
Yep.
like, I thought there'd just be a bigger role for him, especially the like the voice talent that they got in Jeffrey Wright. I thought, yeah, he's going to be in more of this, but no. So I thought it was underused.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he seemed like an interesting character, like with all the notes and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
yeah, for him to just bow out so quickly, it's like, oh, I thought you'd do more with that, but maybe that's something they'll explore in DLC if there's any. I don't know. So yeah, I was just like, oh, that's weird. You got this. Wonder how much. Maybe it was too expensive.
Yeah,
Maybe
probably,
it was
yeah.
like, yeah, it's like we're gonna per line. You're way too expensive. We're gonna have you have about 8 words to
Just
say.
cut 10 scenes with him in to make it even longer.
But then where do we go to from there? I think we have a flashback with Owen. And then that's when they go to the aquarium when he shows Abby the aquarium for the
Where he's
first time.
bouncing on that bloody Ferris wheel, scaring the shit out of her. Like, yeah, of course she's... This is why I don't like Owen. What a dick.
No, he was joking around. God, don't know how you hate Owen so much. I'm questioning you as a person.
Hate is a very strong word. Dislike, I think, would be better.
Even dislike questionable ethics for you. But yeah, and yeah, basically, I like this section because it's basically showing that Abby is far too focused on revenge at this point to even spend time with Owen. He even comments on like her strength when she like pulls him into the aquarium and stuff like that, and it's like, oh, this is like Abby. It's really just a one-track mind. She's just all out on revenge at this point. She doesn't want to stay because she's like, oh, I'm gonna miss training.
Yes.
Like one day I'm gonna miss training. And it's like, well, yeah, I like that part of it. And it's cool just seeing like every time you go to the aquarium, because you go so many times, it's just seen in a different light and a different, different context around it, and it's for both characters, and I think that's really cool.
Absolutely.
It never feels like you're retreading old territory. It always feels different, which is cool.
Yeah, it's only on that next visit to the aquarium where you do retread some additional things, and it's not very much at all. They did very well at showcasing different areas and allowing sort of different exploration around those spaces. Very well thought out in terms of level design. Like, there's only a couple of places that you actually revisit, isn't there? So Abby goes to the hospital as well at some point.
Yeah, that's day 2.
Yeah, and that's again another interesting part that will pop up.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've done very well at not allowing any of the spaces really to feel overused and like you've just been there before and it's boring. Everything, even when you revisit it, still feels fresh.
Yeah, so still on Seattle day 1, Abby goes back to find Owen despite she knowing that Isaac wouldn't approve of it. And that's when she meets the scars, which is, it's that cutscene, which was, I think, one of the first looks that we got in the game, of the game.
Yes.
Like a Sony press conference or something. And it was like, yeah, that when they eviscerated that dude and stuff like, it just seemed gratuitous for no reason. But it obviously, in the context of the entire game, this made a bit more sense. And you basically meet Yara and Lev, and I think one of the like coolest and scariest parts of the game is like getting chased through that forest. Like when it's pitch black and there's like clickers and stuff like, or just running towards you. So I think that kind of set piece was one of the best in the game.
It was good. It was very easy to feel surrounded, even though you probably weren't. There were maybe only 2 or 3 of the was it the runners they call them, the newer type of infected that weren't in the first game. Might be stalkers, yeah. Maybe runners. Maybe runners are the normal ones, the first stage. But yes, so you're with this newer type of enemy, and it does only feel that maybe, whilst there's lots coming for you, that actually sort of, there's only 2 or 3 kind of waiting in the wings for certain points where maybe even it'd be interesting to see how they've made this. Whether you stray out of the path, and that's when they kind of come towards you, because obviously the 2 other characters must run on a rough sort of set path through the forest to take you where you need to be. But it was so dark and dense, and that light only spread out for a few meters, that it did just feel oppressive and scary, and at times when you can just hear them in the background as well. Really good part of the of that experience.
Yeah, because if you're in a forest at night, it would be that dark.
Yeah.
It's like, I think probably one of the best gameplay, like in terms of like white knuckle experiences I had in the game, was just after that, when you're in like this house, and like Yara and Lev go see if there's exit or something, or they get out, and then you think that. I was just like running around this house. There was like 6 bloaters and it was. I was like, "What am I meant to do, game? What am I meant to do? Where is the exit?" And it was only. It was like I was just about to like run out of everything. I was like, crawling, jumping over things, like going through like this small crack and everything. And it was like, I was like, okay, I'm probably gonna die here. And it was when I heard like either Yar or Lev, we're like, Abby, come over here. And I was like, oh my god, thank God. Yeah, that was that was like probably the most intense 5 minutes in a game that I've had for a long time. Because they throw so many enemies at you at that point. It's such a small space. Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, it was very cool, and it shows off again how they've curated their sort of play spaces and their action sort of sets, with a lot of the, there's glass, there's big windows with glass in that you can sort of get through or shoot the enemy through to kind of stop them. There's those big gashes in the wall that you can kind of move through. They've made a very good and dynamic sort of fight space in such a small area. And I was definitely overwhelmed a couple of times, because I thought, well, the enemy drops down here, so I'm going to go over here, and it's like, oh no, the other one that's in that space comes down from on top of here. So suddenly I'm very quickly overwhelmed. The first time, I completely forgot that the bloaters actually do damage to you when you kind of explode, because obviously Ellie doesn't feel that when the bloaters are with them. She doesn't get hurt as much. Suddenly Abby's just like decimated by being exploded. I'm like, oh yeah, that's part of the game. So it took me a couple of tries to get that, and again, as I talked about last week, I very much wanted to defeat every enemy in these areas so I could go around and pick up all of the ammo again and stuff, because as you said, during that I started to run very, very low, and they'd already thrown so much at me that I thought there's gonna be something else coming up. I need to sort of try and find more ammo. But I think on the third try, I just had to get out when I heard when I heard them calling.
Yeah, I was just like, no. As soon as they started calling, I was like, I'm booking it. I don't care. Nerves are fraught as they are. But and I think, well, she leaves Yara and Lev in like the trailer park, and she goes back to the aquarium, which I thought I didn't really remember the sequence of events. So I was like, oh, she's going back, and Owen and Mel are going to be dead, but that's on day 3. This is day 1. So I thought it was like, it's really well telegraphed. Like, it's like, what am I going to walk into? Like, kind of like Gone Home, kind of like the end of Gone Home. It's like,
Yeah.
what am I walking into? It's like, is this when I see them both dead or something like that? So, but no, he's fine. He's in the little sailboat.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's the sex scene, which is, I thought it was earned. I thought it was tasteful enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, and then you wake up in day 2, and it's like, oh yeah, Abby was just almost hanged. You know, when she feels around her neck, it was like, oh crap, yeah, she was like almost hanged like a couple hours ago. But yeah, and then we go back and not save, but we go back to get Yara and Lev.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think Abby's motivations are at this point to go back?
I obviously, until that point up with Joel, it seems from what they'd sort of shown in the sort of the flashbacks and things that she was very focused on revenge, and she's obviously built herself up physically to kind of enact something, on Joel, or to be in a better position to be able to do that. Suddenly, once that's happened, whether there's not a change in her personality, but something that's maybe a bit more nurturing, something that was always there, especially knowing now that Mel is sort of pregnant, that maybe she's thinking there has to be more than just kind of what I've been thinking about and what I've been experiencing up until this point. And I mean, she comments several times, they're just kids, to kind of, when they all go back and sort of introduce them to the other characters and stuff. So I think she's coming at the fact that she's suddenly thinking, well, actually we've lived quite a sheltered experience in the stadium, and kids are protected, we have classes for them to go to, and then suddenly she's confronted with these 2 kids who save her life to start with, but also who are living a very different experience than she is. And suddenly there's this maybe not an instinct to help them, but a want to just to make sure that they're okay. And I don't think there's any way, she doesn't know about kind of how they can help her at sort of a later stage, with Lev and the Sky Bridge and all of this sort of stuff. So I think it's just a sudden change in perspective. I think as we have as players through the game, I think the characters sort of experience that as well.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. But yeah, so we go back and get Yara and Lev. And then they're like, okay, we need supplies so we can operate, and then you're en route to the hospital. So you're going up that really tall skyscraper. And yeah, I don't know, because I turned off screen shake because of motion sickness. I'm wondering if that would have more of an impact going across that massive sky bridge, because everyone's like, "Oh, this makes you really, appreciate a fear of heights, especially how high up in the sky you are." So,
I think it's so. I get up on a lot of roofs as part of my job. And I think an issue with people in height is a lot to do with scale. So the higher up you are, the more difficult it is to actually feel scared, because you don't have that much of a sense of scale. And I wonder whether that's part of it. So when you're with Abby and you kind of look down, you can see quite clearly a lot of the stuff below you. There's only a certain point where stuff starts to fog a little bit. I can't remember which part that is. Maybe just before you fall and hit through the glass ceiling.
For a second. Yeah, it clears for a second. It's like, oh, I'm really high up. Yeah.
Yeah, and I took some lovely atmospheric spaces. There's a part where you first get right up to the top, and you can walk out onto this ledge that's sticking out, and there's some supplies further out there. But I just spanned the camera around, turned on some ridiculous red filters, because it's all sort of foggy and stuff. It makes it look almost like super Apocalypse Now style kind of thing, where it's just pure red and it's all just looks brutal. And Abby looks very, very alone, sort of stood out on the ledge, clutching herself, because she's got to that point where you've taken her far enough that suddenly her whole persona changes. And she's like, "Oh shit, this is scary."
Yeah. What was funny is when Lev asked, like, what's going on between you and Owen? She's like, no, it's not the time.
Yeah. Just to interrupt, thank you for joining us, Ross. Ultra
Yes,
is
thank you.
Ross as a new user. Thanks for joining us, dude.
Yes, thank you. Much appreciated. Yeah, so did you think that you'd messed up when she fell?
Yes.
I was
Yeah,
like,
I
okay,
did.
yeah. I was like, oops. I was like, oh no, this is meant to happen.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And then you're going through. You're basically descending down this hotel now, which is full of infected. I thought it was funny how Lev didn't know that you had to wear like a gas mask when there's spores around and stuff like that. It's like, what are these scars teaching these kids, really? But so yeah, I thought. Did you? I found that hotel sequence. It reminded me of like the bloaters in the basement of the hotel in the first game. I was like, oh no, yeah, just a sense of dread going into this hotel.
Yeah, I think I felt that more of the sense of dread when Abby went in by herself. I think that kind of alleviated when Lev rejoined after you do find the gas mask for him. I think they did very well at, you're moving through the space and nothing actually happens. You're just moving through the space until you have to go back, and then there are lots of things around. And they are, again, is it the stalkers, the ones that hide behind things?
Yeah, I just like, I'm not dealing with this. I'm just going to go shoot you. Because they all just run at you at that point. It's like, yeah, I don't have to be in fear this entire time. I'm just going to run in like Rambo and just shoot you. I'm not dealing with this at all.
Pipe bombs, mate. Pipe bombs are your friend with Abby all the time.
So yeah, I just love like the banter as well between her and Lev, and when she's putting on his gas mask. I thought that was a sweet moment. But yeah, I think we should talk about Lev as a character.
Yeah,
like his whole arc I found really interesting, and like depending on who you ask, I have no like I wouldn't say understanding, but I'm very unfamiliar with like transgender and representation of that and stuff. So did you pick up on that? Because a lot of people have called to like, oh, they dead name Lev. Like the scars shout, Lily, you shouldn't have come back here, or something like that. And I had like an inkling first, because I mean, who voices Lev? I mean, they're a trans man in real life. But I was thinking, oh, because it's common for women to voice young male characters in the voice acting industry. So I was like, is Lev possibly transgender at the start? And then it was like, oh, only until like they called him Lily, and it was like, maybe I could have got there by when they're describing like, why did Lev cut his hair off, like, and then Yara goes on to explain it's like, oh, because he would have become the bride to this elder or something in the scars, and it's like, yeah, I probably would have got it then. So yeah, it's a tough one to discuss, and I'm not nearly educated enough in like the kind of like what they should have done. I just think it's good that they did represent someone who's transgender, because you don't ever get that in games.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And I think, sort of, again, as a cis white male, I can only talk about this from my uninformed point of view, or uninformed sort of feelings as well, because I don't know what someone who can relate to this character would be feeling around this. I think dead naming from the scars made sense, because they don't see his transition. They don't want to see that. So I felt that made sense, and was it kind of did drive home a point which I think they'd quite well balanced out. So I had picked up on that beforehand, and I think they really sort of showed the scars kind of for who they are a little bit more as well. Very much talking about this sort of religious sect, how people are sort of thinking about things, kind of moving forward within that social group, made sense that they wouldn't want him to be kind of doing what he wants doing, or feeling how he feels, being who he wants to be. That he has to conform with the role that's kind of been assigned to him within their sort of society. So I think using his dead name made sense. I could see why it might sort of trigger people and be an issue. And it may just be sort of the people that I follow kind of in the trans community, in the LGBT community, who came out not in support of this, but sort of said, actually, I think it's been done quite well and tastefully, and we understand sort of why they've done it in this way. But there's tons of writing and other people discussing this out there, I think, that are going to talk about this much more eloquently and emotionally than we can.
Yeah, than we ever possibly could. But yeah, I think there is a lot of like, go read some pieces out there because they are interesting. Like, as you say, like there is a split, like maybe on the game as a whole in general, but on this specific topic, like some people are like, it was handled poorly, and some people are like, it was handled pretty well. So yeah, but yeah, I think you have to mention it because it's sad that like, there are so many games out there, and this is, to be fair, it's probably the biggest budget game of the year, you know, and it's like we have that representation. It's like, hopefully we get to a place where that isn't like as much as the Ark, like, and it's like, them, you know, it's not a case of them being oppressed for that. It's just like, that's who they are.
And even when you think it's going to expand a little bit more going into day 3, it's still kind of just driven by that idea, really. So yes, it would be good to get something a bit more expanded upon that, or it's not the story about him, isn't that at all, that is just him, and then it's a different thing for him completely.
But I love Lev as a character though. Like he's the most pure in the whole game, you know. You're always rooting for Lev. It's like, I couldn't care what happens to all you other people as long as Lev is fine. And you know,
I like Yara as well. Just the fact that she's had her arms smashed to pieces, and she's like, "No, we still need to just press on." It's like, mate, just take a rest. Just...
And you just seen this. It was like she'd been in surgery the night before, and it's like amputee, and she's still a badass.
Yeah,
you know? Just like, just driven. I really like Yara as well. I think we should move on to the hospital. Which, at this point I was really questioning Abby's motivations. I was like, you really only just met Lara like yesterday. It's like, why are we going to do this? Like when Nora said, oh, this is like ground zero, it has been untouched for like 40 years. I was just like, oh my god, what is down there? And what's down there is a Resident Evil.
Yes, yeah.
Resident Evil villain. What were your thoughts on that whole section?
Interesting, super interesting. We'd obviously already seen the hospital, so good to see a different version of it. But it's just full of atmosphere, isn't it? That is when the game becomes a horror action game. And again, the idea that boss kind of split into 2 as well. You know, this just relentless thing coming towards you, and then suddenly part of it breaks off. I'm like, no, don't do this to me.
Oh my god, what the F is that? Like, no. Yeah, that whole thing was like visually just gross. But when that thing, it was like inside. But I thought the actual gameplay of it was just like, he's a bullet sponge, and if he charges at you, it's like one hit kill. So although the gameplay wasn't that fun, just from a kind of the visual design of that thing, and the whole horror thing, and like the atmosphere, and you just knew it's like, okay, something's gonna go bad, and it's like I didn't expect the Resident Evil boss to come in, because it was very gamey. It's like, you've got this horrible creature, but it made sense. It's like, yes, things have evolved then for 40 years untouched.
And
Yeah, I
it's
thought that.
interesting as well that the clickers that you kind of first encounter, so you move through this very
Mhm,
atmospheric space, not very much going on, and suddenly you open the door, or you start the power up, and
mhm,
then the doors open to allow those kind of clickers to come out. And even that, there was what, 4 or 5 of them, maybe 3, 4 or 5 of them, and they're hiding in these kind of separate rooms, aren't they?
mhm,
And
mhm.
suddenly, kind of that's coming towards you, and you think enough, like, well, clickers are almost one-hit kills, aren't they?
Yeah.
Abby's got the shiv, so she can fight them off a little bit better,
Mhm.
but with that coming towards you, and then thinking this is just going to ramp up in some way
Yeah.
when you get back and that first set of doors has opened that you can't move through, something's obviously broken away from that big mound of flesh and mushrooms and shit. You just think, oh man, what's going to
Yeah.
happen? But as you say, like gameplay wise, could have been a bit better, could have been a bit more refined. You could have to have shot off or limbs or slowed it down in
Yeah,
some
that's what
kind
I
of
thought
way.
you would have had to do. Like, I thought I was going to open up and, like, there I have to hit that or something.
Yeah.
Because it was, like, yes, the most video gamey part of probably all of the game.
Mm.
I love how people refer to him as the Rat King. I love, I love that. He's canonically known as the Rat King. So that's good. Yeah, that hospital scene was. I remember like there's a part in it, and you can basically crawl through this hole that looks like something straight out of like Aliens 2,
Yeah.
and it's like just covered with like mushrooms. I said I'm not going to do that, and I just went another way. I'm not going to crawl into this hole. Why would you do that? But yeah, I thought that was a really good,
Mm.
good scene. And then yeah, they get back day 3. Um, where was the ferry? I can't remember what day the ferry was, but I really enjoyed.
Oh,
Um,
that was really good. That
yeah, I did
was
like that.
with Yara. Were you with Yara? Because
Was
she
it?
doesn't come on the ferry with you. Or were you by yourself?
It might be when Abby first goes to find Owen at the aquarium. I
Yeah,
don't know.
you
I
might be
can't
right. You
remember.
might be
Yeah.
right.
But yeah, I really like that section.
Yeah.
But yeah, day 3, Lev's run off
Did
to
we
go.
did we overlook? Did we miss? Is this when they're looking for the
Probably.
boat? Is this day 3? I thought this was day
Uh,
2. Maybe it is day 3. Go on. Sorry.
mm,
Sorry.
no, it's all right.
My mind's like, what
So much
happened
happens.
where?
Yeah, yeah. It's even when I was looking at like order of events, so this could like maybe like flow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just like, when did that happen? When did that happen? It was just there's a lot that happens in a 30-hour game. But day 3, yeah, Lev runs off. You get some more interaction with like Yara and Mel and Owen. You got any thoughts about that, or it's just like, yeah,
Yeah, I
still,
mean, we sort of touched on it earlier. Yara, she's just come out of surgery, and she's like, no, we have to go and get him. Super determined
yeah,
to get him, and knows where he's going, knows why he's sort of doing it, so just wants to go after him.
yeah,
I think at that point, again, I kind of knowing the fates of Mel and Owen at that point, I'm like, well, I'm not sure what more they can kind of offer at this time.
yeah,
They're sort of a bit throwaway now. We've had the moment, we've had a lot of these moments already with Abby and the way that they kind of talk to each other and the relationships between them. So we're certainly on day 3. We know what happens to them at the end of this day. I don't think we're going to see much more of them.
yeah,
So yeah, I think they were at that point, at least for me, just a bit more throwaway.
yeah. It does upset me. Like the last interaction Abby had with like Owen was him to tell him like get your priorities straight,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it didn't end on a very good note.
Mm,
Yeah, so that was a bit heartbreaking. But yeah, going after Lev, I think yeah, Yara's. She says like she's going to kill him, like, and it's heartbreaking because yeah, like yes, in like real world scenario, sh- his mom is not like probably not even concerned about what he's doing, but it's like this will bring shame on my family,
mm,
and it's like I have to kill you because I want to be in good stead with the rest of the
yeah.
scars. And that yeah, that the whole conversation with like Yara as they're going there, it's like yeah, it's just oh. it's heartbreaking. Yeah. But yeah, then we go back to, it's on like an island. I don't know Seattle.
No, I
Like,
don't either.
I don't know if there's an island in Seattle. I know there's a lot of water.
There is maybe water level rising, cut part of it
Possibly,
off.
yeah.
Maybe I don't know.
Maybe there was a flood. Yeah, we'll go with that. And now Seattle is like just full of islands. But yeah, it was. I thought this was quite a long sequence as well.
Yes.
Isaac gets shot by Yara.
Yeah.
Yeah, the game.
And
yeah.
and with Yara, kind of, you get through this very sparse kind of villagey sort of settings with different areas and things that the Seraphites are sort of living in, and then suddenly there's the attack, or the attack starts happening. You're kind of trying to balance between sort of the Seraphites fighting and them. And
yeah, I just let them all take each other out, but then I realised like more wolves were coming, so it's like I had to kill the wolves.
And
well.
I didn't expect Yara to go down. I think you'd got Lev, you'd found him. Suddenly, the three of them are kind of reunited, and you think, right, great, they're going to get out of this. They're like, nope.
Yeah.
Just sacrifice, just kill her off. Pull on those heartstrings just that little bit more. Right towards the end, he's like, no, really.
And she was, like, Lev could do no wrong in her eyes, and she was that older sister role, and it's just like, oh god, yeah. It was like, another one down.
yeah, and she'd gone through all of that pain, from the previous couple of days, only to end up, there, and it just shows the fragility of kind of everyone's existence within that world, really.
Yeah, no one gets a hero's death. It's just like, nope, you're done. What I think we missed, well, my bad, is one of my probably favourite, like, gameplay. It's very gamey as well, but it's like probably one of my favourite sequences is like the sniper.
Yes,
which,
this is the bit I was gonna come to, because I couldn't remember whether it was because she's off to get a boat. I can't remember when she's off to get the boat. Is that to go to the hospital or? I think go to the island. I don't remember.
It's day 3 because Yara's there at the end, so it's definitely day 3. Yeah.
Yes. So this is the part where you leave Yara to go and get a boat and then meet up with Manny.
Yeah. The sound design is just incredible. Like each sniper shot, and you definitely got like the start of oh my god, why can't I remember the name of that film? Very famous film, Tom Hanks, Matt Damon, war film. World War II.
Saving Private Ryan.
I have a complete mind blank. Yeah, it is definitely gaming like, Saving Private Ryan vibes. Yeah. Did you know it was Tommy?
No, not for a while. I think
only when you got like close to him.
Yes, yeah, that's when I realised. When you'd got into the building and you started to chase him, I thought, oh, actually, this must be, who would be doing this? And then it made me think back to then where Ellie and Jesse split up, because he goes to find and help Tommy because they've just heard all of these big sniper shots going off in the background, for then Ellie to go and do the whole aquarium part. And suddenly I realised, and it's almost, again, Manny and Yara, at least Yara has a little bit more meaning to her death in taking down Isaac, but Manny had a very similar death to Jesse's, in that you're about to do something and then boom, gone.
Yeah. That was shocking. It was like, no time to think about that because Tommy's coming after me with a sniper rifle, but I thought it was a really cool callback to like the sniping tutorial when you're in the woods with Tommy. So it was like, oh yes, of course it's Tommy. Like they even allude to it. Like Manny saying like, oh, there's these trespassers and they've been coming and hunting us down and stuff like that. And it's like, and then it's like when you get close, it's like, oh, that's Tommy. And like Abby realizing it when they're like fighting just before she pushes him in the water. It's like that look on her face. It was like, oh crap, I don't have any time to focus on this, but like they are coming to seek revenge, and
Yeah,
it's like,
this is who is going
yeah,
through our camps and destroying us. Yeah.
yeah. So it's like, yeah, at that point, I think she's really like, let's get Lev and just get out of here.
I think as well at that point she's kind of not resigned herself to it, but that's sort of the turning point maybe for her, where she starts to think maybe we could get on this boat with Owen and this. I know Mel had said to her, "I'm going to go with Owen. Like, you're not coming with us."
Yeah.
But there's this idea that she's like, right, we need to get these kids out of here because it is just all falling apart.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all gone to hell at this point. But yeah, I don't know how much more you want to touch on, like the burning village.
It was cool. Another cool set
Yeah.
piece. That enemy at the end was just brutal.
Like, gosh, how many times do I have to tear this guy apart? Yeah. I was just like, no, I don't want to do this. I was like, just give up. You know? You've lost this one. But yeah, then you go back to the aquarium. I thought it was hilarious how she just stepped over Mel and just went straight to her. She's like, Mel's dead, okay, whatever. Yep. I know where my priorities are. And yeah, that was... You knew it was coming, so it was like... I don't know how much of an emotional hit that could have been. But yeah. And then they go back to the theatre. And every time you was playing as Ellie in that theatre, and you walked through it, and it's like, oh, everything's like waist high. This looks like there's going to be a gameplay thing. The scary mannequins there. I was like, when is this going to come into play? And it did here. I was just uncomfortable for like 10 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought Tommy was dead for sure, and then like running after Ellie, I was like, oh no, and then that whole gameplay sequence, I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to kill Ellie. I like Ellie still. Ellie is like really scary at this point. She's like a full-on sociopath, because when she's like swearing, like, and you find that funny when you're playing as Ellie, but when you're playing against her, it's like, oh no, this person's unhinged.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think again, it's suddenly for Ellie as well. She's just had, at least what she would think, 2 people that she cares about have just been killed by her or by Abby. So she's just enraged, but she's also got that slight protective element about Dina to her as well. You know, she has to kill Abby at that point. Abby is angry and upset that Owen's been killed, that she let them live and they've come and done this to her, but Ellie is doing it out of just pure survival kind of instinct at that point. And it's just really ramp up how terrifying she can be. And
this is probably like, I don't know because I didn't die that much throughout the game, but some of the deaths in this part are like really gruesome. Like Ellie just blows Abby's face off. She like blows her leg off and then blows her face off, and it's like, damn. Yeah, I really like the choreography of like the very end when it's a cutscene and Dina runs in and then Lev shoots her with the bow and stuff like that. And yeah, I really like that part. What did you think?
Yeah, I did as well. And having Lev as suddenly as Abby's kind of moral conscience stopping her from taking it any further, and Abby saying, just fuck off, basically, I never want to see you again. I liked that. It made sense. And it's this, and again, I think that went to part way to the way I felt right at the end of the game as well, that Abby she'd stopped herself, even after feeling what she was feeling because of what had happened. She stopped herself and she just went, no, I'm done, I don't have to do this.
That was when it was like, oh yeah, she's pregnant, and Abby goes, good. I was like, oh my god. Stone cold. And then we cut to the farm, which visually striking. I thought there was going to be like a Red Dead moment when she walks to the barn.
They all just
but that would have been like
up.
2 on them. That's what I thought was going to happen. But yeah, good job. I was not a writer on this game because that doesn't happen. Instead, it's like, you see the effects she's suffering from. PTSD
Yeah,
of,
absolutely.
and she cannot let it go. I thought it was going to end like when she sits on the tractor and it's like the camera slowly zooms out, and I thought it was like, oh, the credits are going to roll here. And honestly, I would have been pretty disappointed if that had happened. But I think there's so much discussion about like this last part of the game. To be honest, I needed that last part just to get like the final two cutscenes. But I think what would have been interesting if like they had ended with Tommy walking in, who's somehow still alive, and him sliding over the map, like this is where she is.
Yeah.
Cut to black, and then game 3 takes place in California. But it's like, oh no, Naughty Dog just modeled a whole new environment in Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
They went there. Yeah. What did you think about this whole
I liked it. It was a nice sort of epilogue for the game. I think my only criticism is that it was a bit too action heavy at parts with Ellie, and that they introduced this new faction, which is very just throwaway. I loved the farm. And I think I would have been okay if it had finished there, to be honest. Even without Tommy turning up, I think it would have just been like, just a sense of relief, because it was a nice sort of down time kind of moment where you can just allow everything to just wash, go. Like, think this journey is finished, it's over. Like they've just decided to go back, but then having with Ellie having that kind of that moment. I think it then elicited in me a sense that something else had to kind of come, that there needed to be some closure for her, or at least some kind of therapeutic element to help her in this, that we don't just leave her at that point, and that is kind of just think, shit, that's it, she's just going to live with this forever, which is a very real thing to happen to people after these kinds of experiences. They don't get the help that they kind of need. And especially in a society from The Last of Us, that help may not be there for you.
Yeah. I just knowing Ellie as a character and her motivations, I was like, she's not done. She can't be done. I love when Dina said like she's very angry at Tommy, and then she says to Ellie, like, she does not get to be more important than us, i.e. Dina and JJ.
Yep.
And it's like, Ellie's just driven at this point, by the PTSD, by feeling like she hasn't got the best of Abby as well. So, but yeah, Santa Barbara it is a very long section.
It is
gameplay wise, and I don't think it brings in much new gameplay other than people wear helmets now.
Yes,
the Rattlers are like they're horrible people. One note that I found in like the Rattlers section, he was just like, it's just so nonchalant about his job as like being one of the slave drivers, and it's like he's like, oh yeah, I'll send home apples to you and Mom next week and stuff like that. I'm just like, you're a literal slave driver. Like you Californians are crazy, but other than like setting the infected, did you set any of the infected off on any of them? I didn't, because I was like, I'm not dealing with clickers as well. I'm just gonna leave them chained up.
There was one chained up, and there was a guy taunting him. I think it's the first one. So I killed the guy and then let the clicker free. I think you then get to the area with the pool, where they're in that pool, and they'd spotted me at that point. So I just ran, let them free, and then just ran again and hid. And allowed them to just and they took ages to kill the clickers, and the clickers maybe only killed 2 or 3 of them. There was still a lot of them for me to deal with. I'm just sort of sat in a bush waiting, taking little arrow shots as they're kind of running around and things, picking them off. But again, like there was a lot of enemies in that section to just try and push through, and it makes sense that you were at their base. So just as you say, a little bit long as well.
Yeah, I mercy killed the clickers after I'd killed all of them. But I was just like, I'm not dealing with clickers as well as you guys. I'm just gonna not bother to set them loose. I'd like to go back to that gameplay section and just let them loose and see what happens. But not on the first try. But yeah, Abby like frees those poor people, and it's funny because when they're like, Abby's probably already dead, because
Yeah, yeah.
they're thinking that, oh, Ellie would only come this far if Ellie wanted to save Abby.
Hmm.
And then it just puts in focus of like, this revenge mission from Abby is like ridiculous. You've come all this way just to kill this woman. You've gone through this slave camp just to kill this woman. But when they're like, I mean, when you're walking down there and it's like you see people crucified, it's like, yeah, it's quite striking. Did you get fooled and think, because there's a woman with a ponytail on one of those
Yep.
bosses. Did you? I thought that was Abby, and I was like, well, she's dead.
Yep, I did as well.
Got
Walked over to her and just like, oh, no.
Yeah.
And I actually tried to leave the area,
Mm-hmm.
which you then find she's the one in front of where you leave, because it kind of turned, you know, Ellie stumbled to get out and sort of came back in, and then suddenly you turn around and there's a prompt and you can do something. I'm like, oh, there she is. And again, I didn't see Lev either. After this bit, I hated it. I hated this section after this.
It was probably the most heartbreaking like part of it for me was just seeing how emaciated Abby is,
Yes.
and like how much of a shell of a human she was at
absolutely.
this point. And you know that they've been there for like maybe about 4 months or something like that. I'm just thinking, Abby has had a fair share of torture and pain. Just let it go, Ellie. And yeah, and that whole fight at the end, I knew it, I was just like, I'm gonna have to kill Abby, and I was just so heartbroken about it. It was like, I don't want to do this. Yeah.
Yeah, I was as well. As soon as she put her bag in the boat, I'm like, yep, just jump in, just go. Don't. Yeah.
But you knew, yeah, like Ellie was not gonna let her get off there.
Yeah, and I'm glad that they didn't kill off either character.
Me too.
Glad that they both survived. You know, we've experienced a lot with both of them. I think for either of them to meet their end then would have been not anticlimactic, but just a bit disappointing and a bit kind of heartbreaking and hollow.
Yeah. And this is probably where the game, story-wise, because I was just like Team Abby, and I was very disappointed with Ellie's choices and what she was doing. It was only until these last two cutscenes with Joel, where the first one, you basically think that their last interaction was Ellie saying, I don't, effing need you.
Yes.
Like, very angry with him. And that was heartbreaking, but the cutscene that happened after that with Joel is when she's basically saying, like, I can try to forgive you. That just hammered home everything, and that just like put a nice little bow on it. It's like that changes the context of everything for me. I understand why Ellie's so driven now.
Yeah.
It's like Abby took away any chance I had to reconcile with this person.
And it's interesting that it makes you in both of those scenes, and that scene where she is chatting to him. It's one of the only scenes in this where I'm welling up.
Yeah, I cried at
and just thinking. It's really interesting how they make you feel for Joel. He's a horrible, horrible man, but they really make you think back to kind of your experiences with him in the first game, why he does, why he makes the decisions that he does, even though he's, kills loads of people, and just really humanizes him in that point. And I think, as we mentioned in the first part of our chat, how he'd got to that point where actually, Ellie wasn't sort of a stand-in for Sarah anymore, that he did care about her kind of as a separate, it wasn't just that protective figure anymore. It's that, actually, I care for you as an individual rather than just the role that I have kind of been given. Yeah. And that was really, really picked up on and done very well in those last few scenes. And there's the part as well where it's sort of in the boat section where she's sort of just left in the water, or when she has her fingers bitten off, where suddenly it sort of flashes to Joel as well playing the guitar, and that's kind of what makes her stop. The idea that actually she doesn't need to do this.
She can get peace without killing Abby.
Exactly.
And Abby full well knows that revenge doesn't solve anything.
Yep.
Yeah.
Joel being sort of central to that, and central to her whole experience through this game, and that recontextualization of everything that's sort of happened and why she's doing this. With Joel again being just that central character, even though you've experienced so much with these others as well.
When he says, like, when she says, "I can try and forgive you," and he says, "I'd like that," and his voice cracks because he's just like on the brink of crying. That got me. Oh
Yep.
God.
Yep.
And that's why I think, like, Troy Baker, even though he had a smaller role, is probably the best voice actor in this. Like, he was not given a lot to work with. Well, he's given a lot, but his role's so small, yet he's just brilliant every single time he's on the screen. It's just, and then she goes back to the farm. I'm glad Dina left. It's like, no, don't put up with your abusers. Just go. Just leave. Take JJ. Get out of there. And yeah, when she tries to play the guitar but has no fingers.
There's a theory at that point that she's actually already gone back to Jackson, because she, in that last scene, is wearing a bracelet. I think it's a bracelet that Dina had given her. But in the end of the game, when she's fighting with Abby, she doesn't have that bracelet on. And whether it's, in her bag and she then puts it on when she goes back to the farm, expecting to see sort of Dina and has her bracelet on to remind herself about that, or whether she has been back to Jackson and Dina has given her the bracelet and she's just gone back to the farm to pick up her stuff, but then has the realization that she can leave it all. She has that closure. She doesn't need to take any of this with her. Obviously she can't take the guitar. It'd be pointless because she can't play it anymore. But I
don't like that theory. I like the theory that Dina just left, and it's like, no, Dina's got priority. She's got a kid now. Like, she just left, and she's not dealing with Ellie's bull anymore.
And you do get the letter, don't you, in the house from JJ's mum, I think, saying, if you just come back to not JJ, sorry, Jesse's mum, saying you can come back to Jackson. There's always a place for you here. Come back whenever you need to.
I think Ellie's just gone. She's not going back to Jackson.
Ooh, okay.
I think that chapter's done. Yeah, she's a lone wolf. And I like how the home screen, when you, after the credits roll, it's the boat got to Catalina Island. So, because I thought, like when Abby's on the radio, I thought that was just a trap for the rattlers. I thought a person on the radio was like a rattler, just luring them into a trap. But no, apparently the fireflies exist, so there's a bit of hope in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's nice to have that kind of lasting feeling kind of at the end of the game, that it isn't just all despair and death and revenge, that there is redemption, that there is hope for for these characters, and kind of towards the end of the scene when you're Abby going into the cinema, or into the theatre, you hear on the radio them try the wolves trying to pull back from the island, or asking for reinforcements and stuff, and you just think Seattle is just gone.
They got their ass kicked, because that feeds into like Abby's motivations. For me, it's like, Joel killed like what was left of the fireflies, and he's taken that away from her. That's probably why she's angry as well. It's like, look, you took away my community, my sense of family and everything, and she doesn't care about the wolves. She doesn't care about their cause. She is only using them because it's like free gym membership. So, and then it's like, I'm gonna enact
on all the burritos
revenge.
she can eat.
She's like, I'm just gonna use you lot to get myself jacked up, and so I can kill Joel. And when that's done, she's like, I don't care about these people.
Yeah, very much. Yeah,
I only care about the fireflies,
and she cares about her sort of. I don't know whether all of them were fireflies out of that group that all went to see Joel. I would imagine that they were, which is why they went with her. But yeah, she's definitely much more invested in her old life and kind of how she's tried to retain parts of her old life, just having to work with the wolves.
Yeah. Overall thoughts? Thumbs up, thumbs down. One
Brilliant.
word to describe it.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd go as far as to say it's a masterpiece. Yeah. In terms of everything. Game design, level design, sound design, story. I really love the story. Yeah, and
absolutely.
they've justified this sequel. I'm glad they got me to shut up and say, look, Lucy, you don't know what you want. You want a sequel. You want a third game. Would you like a third game?
Yes. Yes, I would.
Yeah.
I think I'm happy for that to be the end of Ellie's story, and for us to not do anything more with her, or even that group. You know, Dina, Tommy, anyone else. I don't need anything more from them. Either it's a third game following Abby and Lev, and maybe kind of rolling in them getting to the Fireflies, or what the Fireflies are trying to do, recontextualizing who the Fireflies are as well, you know, exploring that, or exploring who the Fireflies are now as opposed to who they were previously, and ideas around that, rather than something completely new and new characters. You know, introduce new characters, but around the story, or at least part of the story of Abby and Lev.
Yeah, I'd love to see more Abby. Yeah, and Lev. Yeah, because I really liked Abby as a character by the end.
And it's be interesting seeing Lev kind of as himself as well, almost not trying to be himself, surrounded by the environment that he kind of grew up in, and this sort of oppressive environment for him, but allowing him to be his own person as well. Yeah,
I think that'll do it then.
Yeah,
we got there in the end. Yeah.
Was it roughly 2.5 hours of chat around it?
Yeah. Around that.
Makes sense.
Makes sense for everything.
30-odd hour game.
But yeah, one of the best games I've played this year, for sure. Where is it in your ranking? Is it best game you played?
What else have I played? I think so far it is the standout game from this year for me. There are lots of good games, lots of stuff that I've enjoyed, but it's top tier, and I think it's close to, if not top of PS4 games as well, this generation at the moment. I mean, I wouldn't count The Last of Us in this generation, even though we got the remaster for it. I mean, that's very much my favourite PlayStation 3 game. I think The Last of Us Part 2. I'm not sure whether I'll return to other games. You know, things like Red Dead, which I rate really highly, or Red Dead 2, and you know, God of War and things. But I think this just is just a next step up for game development, for maturity, for storytelling, for lots of different things. There's you know, we talked about some of the criticisms around it. Not everything, things aren't perfect. You know, being a masterpiece doesn't mean it is removed from criticism, or that there isn't anything to criticize. But I think you're right with saying that it is a masterpiece. But there's always ways to elevate and improve upon.
I'm sure they will, and I hope they do it without killing their developers.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Yeah, and all the. I don't even want to touch on like the wider criticism of people, but like, it's a shame that this game has been muddied by that, you know, because it is a fantastic game. But you know what? We actually played it, and we liked it.
Yes,
so
we love it.
For it. Yeah.
Yeah.
People are angry, like, oh, Abby's hench. It's like, it's not hard to get big arms. Like, come on, let's be real. You've just never been to a gym before, nor seen probably another person before in your life.
A woman? It doesn't look like all of the other women on my screen. No.
I think we should end it there.
Good.
Thank you for listening. Go play the game. If you haven't, I don't know why you're listening. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe you're just collecting your thoughts about the game before you play it, and then just shout at people on the internet. I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah, great game.
It is.
Thank
it
you,
is. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for talking us through as well and giving us some kind of structure to move forward with our thoughts and bring it all out. Otherwise, it'd just been a big blurb of blah.
So the farm, the first thing we talk about. What day was that again? Seattle Day 2? I don't know.
If you do enjoy and have played The Last of Us, if you've got criticisms about it, if you want to talk about it, you can see on the screen currently. Lucy is Juicy Loose, or 9 actually, over on Twitter. I'm Nova_47. You can also come to the Out of Lives Discord to chat to us about it. We're always open to talk more about The Last of Us 2. This is in no way, I think, the last we'll ever say about this game. It's going to be talked about for a long time.
We'll probably bring it up at the end of the year.
More than likely, yes. If you want to hear us talk more about it at the end of the year, you can listen to both of us, joined by Adel, on the Tanked Up podcast, where we do every year, we do a top 10 of the year, sort of around December kind of time. So you can join us back then. But yeah, check out our Discord, follow Out of Lives on Twitter, which I think is just Out of Lives these days. You can follow Lucy and I at Tanked Up Cast on Twitter as well, or on Instagram. There's loads of places. Come to outoflives.net too. I put up an article about what I'd like to see next from Naughty Dog as well.
Yeah, I was gonna, because I was thinking, should we go into that? I was like, no, just read Ben's article.
Yeah. And then, I mean, we can talk about it at some other point if you like, Lucy, because you may have thoughts about what you want to see from the next.
I'm too exhausted by everything to even think like, oh, will I be alive in 7 years when the next Naughty Dog comes out? Who knows? Who's to say? So.
Yeah, let's see what the next small experience they put out first is, to know how long it's going to take them to put out a PS5 game.
Well, I'm glad I'm not a gaming developer. So glad.
Yeah, just someone who can experience them.
Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks, Lucy.
Thank you.
Bye.
www.outoflives.net